Hello YouTube chess lovers and my friends, this is Gunjan here. Welcome to the 21st episode of Dirty Chess Tricks. Now the Petroff or the Russian defense, which arises after the move order e4, e5, knight to f3 and now knight to f6, which is considered as one of the most reliable and the solid defense from the black. It has been used at the highest level to get a comfortable equality or maybe a draw, and not only that, at the lower level, you are often going to meet this when you're facing a lower seeded opponent. So that's why as a white, you should have a good replica against it. Now the setup I'm going to recommend in this video not only contains lots of tricks, but the good point is, even though if your opponent doesn't fall for it, white get slight consistent advantage. Here I'm recommending white should certainly follow the main line with the move knight captures e5. And now knight captures e4 is a famous mistake, so that's why the main line run with the move d6, knight to f3, and now black regain his pawn with the move knight captures e4. Here white has tried few options, for example main line runs with the move d4. There's also knight to c3, which recently more popularized, but I'm going to recommend Lasker or the Cosio attack, starting with the move queen to e2. So black response is forced. Black has to play queen to e7, and we reach to a very unique scenario where both the side has blocked up their king side bishop. So it's very obvious that in the most of the cases they are going to castle on the queen side. Here white should continue with the move d3, hitting the knight, and after the move knight to f6, white has tried many options including bishop to g5. Now as usual, we are always going to shock our opponent, and here I am going to recommend a very tricky move starting with bishop to e3. So not only we are activating the bishop, but we are stopping the queen trade. Now amazingly enough, when I checked this position in the online database, I found out that this position has only occurred in 12 games. So you can understand the surprise value of this move. Black is in a crossroad now, and he has to decide amongst two plans which one he is going to follow. The first plan is very obvious. Black is going to play g6, bishop g7 and castle on the king side. And the second plan is taking out this queen side piece and castle on the queen side. Considering the opening choice, I think Petroff player will hardly consider the move g6 because they are not familiar with the Fianchetto setup. However, I have included a sample line in the PGN, which is available in description, which will give you a very good idea how white should proceed and get a good advantage against this line. The more natural for the black player is to finish his queenside development, such as knight to c6, and after white continue with the move knight to c3, they are going to play the move bishop to g4. So not only pinning that knight, but black is all set to castle on the queen side with a wonderful position. Well, white response is very obvious. White has to unpin this knight as quickly as possible with the move h3. Now, if your opponent surrender the bishop pair with the move bishop captures f3 or bishop to f5, then white should be delighted because in the open game, bishop pair is one of the major factors. We are going to look at those lines at the end, but first I want to show you what happens if your opponent played bishop to h5, because it looks very natural, preserving the bishop pair and maintaining the pin. Well, everything looks so good except one problem, that black has straight away fallen into the white tricky camp. The tricky business starts with the move g4, hitting the bishop, and after the move bishop to g6, that g pawn rolling down one more square with the move g5, hitting the knight. And now no matter wherever this knight goes, white will obtain a winning edge just early in the opening. I have reached this position 6 times in my game, and in 5 cases my opponent has tried the move knight to d7, but I'm afraid this is a big time mistake, because now by force white can win black's queen. Here white should continue with the move knight to d5, hitting the queen. And kindly note, queen has the only space to go, that is d8. And after that, I want you to pause this video and find out how by force you can win black queen. Okay, I hope you find this wonderful move. Bam! With two distinct lines. If queen captures c7, then this is very easy because we can deliver this discover check with the move bishop to b6 and nabbing the black queen. More critical is what happens if king comes forward. But then again, we can play the move bishop to b6, discover attack to the king, and after any knight moves which blocks the diagonal, let's say knight d to e5, then we have this knight check, which again trap the baby. So you should remember this queen trap, where if your opponent plays knight to d7, then by force you can win the queen with the move knight to d5. Let's see what we should do if your opponent plays other knight move. The first move I want to consider is knight to h5. So black has already put that knight in the corner, and the best way to exploit this is to start with the move knight to h4. While its idea is when black plays the obvious move castle on the queen side, white will play the move bishop to g2, and now there are two threats which I'm afraid black cannot parry both of them. In one blitz game, my 2100 rated opponent continued with the move queen to d7. So his idea is to protecting the knight and then develop his dark square bishop. But white's next move, bishop to f3, and he realized that he just lost a piece at the 14th move of the game. The more accurate move order over here is f6, but then white can take this knight, and after pawn captures, already black's king protection is shattered, and top of everything, white has this move in the picture, that is queen check. Kindly note, queen to d7 can be easily met with the move queen to a4. So in one game, my opponent tried the move king to b8. But then white immediately concentrate on the king with the move queen check, king to a8, and now queen to h5, threatening a checkmate. So black has to stop it with the move c5. Probably here black has only considered the move knight to b5, where he can defend everything with the move c6. But what he missed is, after knight captures, pawn captures, and the move b4, black position is completely crumbling. He tried the move c6, stopping any knight intrusion, but after pawn captures, doesn't matter how black respond. For example, in the game he responded with the move d capture c5. But then white continued his attack with the move rook to b1. And now I think there is no stopping with the knight coming on the g6 square. Just to demonstrate how quickly black fallen apart, my opponent continued with the move rook to b8. I capture this rook, and after king takes, a very strong move, king to d2. So not only unpinning the bishop, but the rook comes into the frame immediately. My opponent tried to weather the storm with the move king to c8, but it's never going to happen, because after rook to b1, queen to c7, try to exchange the queen check, king to d8, and now rook to b7, attacking the queen to c8, and after queen captures a7, it's a pathetic position for the black. Not only his king side pieces are completely sleeping, but on top of everything, white has a rook to b8 threat. Probably the third and the best choice for the black over here is knight going back to g8. But nevertheless, white still obtain a winning edge after knight to d5 hitting the queen. This time around, queen has a hiding square with the move queen to d7. But as usual in this line, white never run out of the tactics, and here the star move, yup, bishop to b6. Discover attack to the king, Kindly note, if any piece comes into the e file, then knight to c7 is a winning stem for the white. So black has to forcefully play over here king to d8. Afterwards, we are going to continue with the move knight to c7, hitting the rook, and that rook cannot move. For example, in one game, a 2100 rated player tried the move rook to c8, hitting the knight, but then comes knight to e6, double discover check. Black has to forcefully move the king. He played king to e7. Now comes another discover check, and after the move knight to e5, I simply took this knight, and white is on the verge of creating another discover deadly check. My opponent tried queen to a4, but after knight to c4, it is very obvious that white is going to have a lot of fun in this line. He tried king to d7, queen to g4 check, king to c6, and now I finish him at the center of the board with this move order, that is queen check, king to d5, bishop to g2, bishop to e4, and now bishop captures e4, finished with a picturesque checkmate. So here it's very obvious that black cannot move the rook. The base line goes with the move pawn captures b6, but then white can take this rook. So already white is an exchange up, and the only move to keep black in the game, which I doubt your opponent can find out, that is queen to f5. So black has a cunning idea of queen to a5 check and nabbing the piece. But nevertheless, white has a decent reply over here, that is b4. So stopping all the nuisance. The base line runs with the move knight captures b4, but then white can continue with the move rook to b1, attacking the knight, queen to a5, trying to get a discover check. So white needs to block it with the move queen to d2, and after knight check and king to d1, if black takes the piece, then his own knight hangs. So the base response goes over here with the move queen to d5, hitting the knight. But amazingly enough, white has this wonderful resource, knight to b6, hitting the queen. At first sight, it looks very strange because after queen check, black can nab the rook in the corner. But believe it or not, this is exactly white wants, because after king takes, and queen to a5, white obtain a very decisive advantage. Let me fast forward few moves. Queen to c6 check, king to d2, and now however black plays, his king is not going to survive longer. For example, in this situation, base move is knight to e7, but then white can play the move rook to c1, and black has to give up the queen, as if we try to save the queen by moving anywhere, let's say queen to f3, then we have this finishing blow, queen check, knight to c8, rook to c8 check, king to e7, and now rook to e8 is a checkmate. Okay, now let's see what happens if your opponent plays bishop captures f3 or bishop to f5. In either case, surrendering the bishop pair and giving white a very good slight advantage. The first move I want to consider is bishop to f5. Well, after that, white move is very obvious. White has to play g4, and now bishop to g6 enter into the tricky area. So the only good move over here is bishop to e6. Kindly note, bishop to d7 is a big time blunder. The simple reason is, after the move g5 and knight to g8, white once again trapped this queen after knight to d5. After bishop to e6, white get the bishop pair with the move knight to g5, because if we try to save this with the move bishop to d7, then black has lost it so many tempos as I have highlighted over here, and this gives wonderful initiative to the white after the move bishop to g2. For example, a sample line can run like this: h6, knight to e4, castle on the queen side, and after castle on the queen side, you can already compare this two stupid bishop with these two wonderful bishop which are already looking at the queen side. It is very obvious that it is only white who is in charge of the game. The second move, bishop captures f3, is a big time concession, as I have already mentioned earlier, because not only black has surrendered his bishop pair, but the resulting position is quite favorable to the white. Now, just to illustrate the plan of the campaign from the white side, I like to show you one of my game where my opponent continue with the move castle on the queen side. Now, instead of castle on the queen side, black can play this tricky move d5, which happens in 2-3 games. But here I think white should not be afraid and take this pawn, because after the following line, knight captures, queen captures, and now black reveals his nasty idea with the move queen check, regaining his pawn. But white should not afraid, because after c3, queen captures and rook to c1, white has still obtained a very decent advantage. One of the recent game continues with the move bishop to a3. White continue with the move queen check, and after knight to e7, he liberate his other bishop with the move d4. Black took this pawn, hitting the rook. No matter, white move it out of the attack with the move rook to b1. And the following continuation happened, that is bishop to d3, f5, queen captures b7, f4, which at first sight looks very threatening, but white has one amazing resource which finished the game instantly. I wonder if you can spot it. Kindly pause the video and find out how, as a white, you should continue from here. Okay, I hope you find this wonderful move, queen to a6. So white has a very simple threat of bishop to c4 and nabbing the black queen. So black doesn't have time to capture this bishop. And in the game, black plays king to h8. But then comes bishop to c1, not only getting out of the attack, but nabbing the whole piece. So d5 is a very tricky move, but white can take this pawn and maintain his very good advantage. Let's concentrate on my game where my opponent castle on the queen side, which is a natural move. Against this, I'm recommending that you should also castle on the queen side. And black has to sort out the issue of his dark square bishop. Kindly note, g6 at this position is not possible. The simple reason is after bishop to g5, bishop to g7 and knight to e4, black is going to lose a piece. So that means black has to find other way to liberate his dark square bishop. At this point, my opponent continues with the move d5. I respond with the move d4 with the threat of bishop to b5. So my opponent stop it with the move a6. Now I'd place another attacking move g4, trying to get g5 in. So my opponent has to stop it once again with the move h6. And white plays the obvious move bishop to g2. So already white has completed his all piece development and two bishops are looking very good. Okay, my opponent continues with the move queen to d7. So his idea is to play bishop to b4. I stop it with the move a3. And now he would love to play bishop to d6, but in that case the d5 pawn will hang. So he has to forcefully play bishop to e7. Now both the side has tried to centralize the rook. King to b1, rook to e8, bishop to f4, king to b8, and now rook h to e1. So at first sight this looks like a very equal position, but the problem here is black is lagging a clear plan. After a long thought, my opponent continued with the move knight to a5. So his idea is to play knight to c4. But after white's next reply, that is bishop to e5, my opponent realized that he is in a big danger because white has a simple threat of capturing this knight and then capturing the d5 pawn. And the funny enough is this c7 pawn is pinned, so he cannot play c6. Black continued with the move knight to c4, hitting my bishop. I responded with the move bishop to f1, and knight to e5 is now not possible because after d captures e5, once again the d5 pawn will fall. So in the game he decided to play queen to c6. I capture his knight, and after queen captures, I activate my rook with the move rook to e3. So you can see that dark square bishop is very annoying, is pinning down the c7 square, and create a tremendous pressure on the d5 square. My opponent had enough of this nonsense, so he played king to a8, freeing up the c pawn. But I think it's too little too late, as after rook d to e1, queen to c6, white can create this forcing sequence, that is bishop captures, rook captures, rook captures, rook captures, queen captures, and now knight to d5, winning a pawn and get a favorable ending. My strong opponent tried the move queen check, and after king to a2, he played queen to e6, pinning my knight. But I just defend everything with the move c4, and now indeed there is a threat of knight to c7. He has to parry with the move king to b8, but then once again comes this forcing sequence which gives white a decisive advantage in the superior endgame. The forcing sequence starts with the move knight captures. If queen captures, then white will simply exchange the queen. So in the game my opponent tried queen captures c4, regaining his pawn, but then he has to deal with the move queen to b3, and after queen captures, king captures, and pawn captures. Not only white king is superiorly placed, but black has some horrible pawn structure on the king side. The game wrapped up very quickly after c6, d5, king to c7, king to d4, king to d6, and now pawn captures, and the move b4, which completes the zugzwang scenario. He tried king e6, but that allows infiltrating my king on the queen side with the move king to c5, king to d7, and now simple king to b6. It is just an easy technical win for the white. I hope you enjoy and learn this wonderful tricky setup against the Petroff defense. The amazing part is black has to decide whether he wants to surrender the bishop pair and suffocate slowly, or play the move bishop to h5 and give the white full point. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to like, subscribe and comment on my video, and I'll meet you in my next episode very soon. Bye and take care. Well, white has this dazzling move. Well, when first time I seen this game, I said, wow, what a game, man. This guy has some serious attacking potential. Are you ready? Have you seen this move? Shakalaka, boom boom. Well, personally, when I gone through this game, I didn't find that move.